Okay, Judy, go ahead now. You're live on the air.
Okay, good. How are you? I won't look at the screen.
It's okay.
Right. I want to preface this with I'm coming from a different angle tonight. I just want you to assume I believe what I believe, whether you think I'm crazy or unintelligent, whatever. Let's just assume there's a chance I'm right. I know in my heart I'm right, but you guys think I'm not. Okay. So I want you to understand motivation. Right now, we're going to be more than likely very soon going into a tribulation. Now, I'm not whacked, but I'm saying based on what's going on in the Mideast, Christians that really follow, we always watch Israel. Israel is where it's at. Israel is, we always base God's next moves on what's happening with Israel. We acknowledge Israel is the apple of his eye. We give you all that. However, I'm not an expert, but just hear me out. Based on Daniel 12, Ezekiel, some of the TaNaCh scriptures, there's a prophecy concerning difficult times, which you've been through already, but there's a time that's coming that made Daniel sick, right? So the Christians who are serious, a lot of them, and a lot of the scholars, believe that the Jewish people are going to have to endure the 7-year tribulation. Christians will too, but there are certain Christians that if they make themselves ready, there's what we call the rapture. So just hear me out. I know you have theories about that too. So my motive is I don't want Jewish people to go through this horrible 7-year tribulation. And if I'm right, I want to convince you, because according to our Bible, there will be a revelation. Now, I've listened to you a lot of tonight, from the Shroud of Turin to the thing about just believing. The thing with belief is, it's just like if you love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your mind, are you going to disobey him? No. And it's just like if you believe Jesus, are you going to obey him? Yes, that should follow. Otherwise, it's unlikely that you believe. So there is repentance to believe, but it's sort of like summing it up. If you believe, then you're baptized, you've already repented, and you become born again. It's not an easy walk. Jesus says it's a narrow route. But as far as the Shroud of Turin, I'll just insert. I'm not promoting. Nobody knows my name.
Real quickly, you did say something important.
I wrote a book on it, and what you're saying is...
Judy, you did say something that was kind of important. I think that should comment. You said that Jesus said, narrow is the way that leads to life, and few there be that find it. And as it turns out, Christianity is the largest denomination of religious beliefism on the planet, right next to Islam. So there's a little conflict there that all Christians are going to have to deal with.
Right, they're not all going to the right place.
You're missing my point. Christians in general, they say that they believe in Jesus and they follow Jesus, but they don't. I mean, if you look at all the teachings of Jesus, and most of them don't even do what he said to do. In fact, I believe Jesus even said when it come to like miracles and stuff, he said, "These things that I do, you will do even greater because you go, you do things in his name," right? Well, whatever the case may be. Well, he was healing, casting out demons. Why aren't people going into hospitals and healing the sick? Why are the hospitals getting rich off of Christians? If Christianity is true, and if Jesus is true, why are things like this being overlooked? And I'll tell you why. It's because that makes Christianity look bad, so they don't bring it up and they don't discuss it.
Well, can I say something to that?
Sure.
Jesus couldn't heal where there was unbelief. So
of course, there's going to be there's got to be some sort of damage control to protect them. It's kind of like this guy Sammy Messiah. We had a Sammy the Messiah guy came on with me and Greg, and he says, "I am the Messiah. I'm the ancient one, and I will be sitting on my throne come July 1st, or whatever the date was." And we asked him, "So what happens if July 1st comes and you're not sitting on your throne?" He goes, "Well, I'll have to go back and look at the date again." I'm like, "That's damage control." So there's no firm answer in Christianity. It's all a guessing game. And that's the same thing you're telling me now. So the thing about it is, there's always something to blame it on. Jesus didn't say if you believe. He said you will do these things. You'll cast out demons. You'll lay hands on the sick and they'll become healed. I think it even talks about you'll lay hands on serpents and not they won't harm you and all this other stuff. And people are doing this and they're getting harmed. I laugh in a very strange way because I find it funny that they still believe that after watching all these fails, and they still want to go back to having all these damage control catchphrases that somehow saves Christianity for yet another year for more people to fall into.
Yeah, but listen, hear me out. Just hear me out for a second. Are you there?
Yep.
Can I say one thing? Okay, I know you have more than 100 reasons why you disagree, and I've heard your reasons. I could address like the flip side of the coin to that, and you still, I don't think you would still agree, but I can tell you, I go to a church where we've had my pastor lay hands on people, and we've had people.
I've seen that too. I've seen that too.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't want to digress though, because I know you don't agree. And
well, let me tell you why I don't agree. Because miracles and signs and wonders, even with that said, are not proof that you're doing God's work. It's very clear in Deuteronomy. He clarified that, in Deuteronomy 13, Deuteronomy 18. All these are a test to see whether you will still follow the God of TaNaCh or you're going to follow other gods, which is what Jesus is. So I don't doubt that miracles happen, but miracles also happen in Hindu and in the Muslim world. So and Buddhism. So does that mean that all of them are also right and Christianity is also right?
No.
How does that work?
Okay, I'll tell you how. Well, first of all, I was only addressing because you were saying there's no miracles that have happened, but they have.
Oh, I didn't say there was no miracles that happened. I never said that.
Well, you were saying that Jesus said you're going to do this and do that greater works than me. He was talking to his disciples, so I've seen enough of it. Look, if I had 2 hours with you, I would tell you my side, but that's not why I'm calling. I don't want to convince you. I'm not going to. I want you to just understand for two reasons. I'm convinced. I know what I think I know, and I walk a certain route. And when I prayerfully do things, God doesn't mean my life is easy, but I feel like I'm steered in a certain direction, as I'm so sure you do too.
The issue with that is that Christians base their choices and their decisions on emotions and on feelings. They'll pray, and if they get goosebumps or if they get emotional when they pray, they really feel like God touched them. But God, there's so many things that you don't need to pray about. God told you what to do in TaNaCh. Christians call the Old Testament. And so, but Christians really like to say, no, I want to pray about this and see what's right. You don't need 99% of every counseling session I've ever had. People didn't need prayer. They needed answers that they didn't have because they didn't know what the TaNaCh said. So the idea of your idea of God answering your prayers and all this other stuff, most of it, I'm sorry, it's really, when I say self-inflicting, I mean, it's not God healing you on things. It's like we have the power of belief, and that's something that's very powerful. You can tell yourself to believe something. I know people who are married in abusive relationships, and they believe with all their heart that their husband still loves them, right? Because that's what the power of belief does to you, right? But the funny thing about TaNaCh is, TaNaCh never says to believe in God. It says to know God. That's the big difference between Christianity and Judaism. You know God, and Christianity is you have to believe. Why do you have to believe? Like this chair, the chair I'm sitting in, I don't believe this chair is going to hold me up. I know for a fact it's going to hold me up. I don't need to believe it's going to. It's something you know, right? And so that's where I find conflict. And the reason why I will never believe that, because I was Christian. I think if I was never a Christian before, and I wasn't a Christian teacher before, I would probably be more vulnerable to your opinions and to your angles, but I've already heard them all, and which is why I won't ever believe them. The issue is you haven't heard all of ours, which is why you keep coming back, right? Because we keep telling you things you never thought about, but then you keep reasoning through it, and you keep rationalizing it to try to find answers, but everything you believe is based on emotion and experiences. Everything we believe is based on text and what's actually written. And that I'm sorry, is not an opinion. That's fact. Because we prove it over and over again on the show. Okay, but
I didn't, like I said, I'm not calling to debate you on those things, because I know your stand on the... No, I'm not. I didn't even want to talk about that part. But I understand his sentiment. I take issue, though. I'm not coming at this from emotional. if I'm bringing up the Shroud of
You
Turin,
just spoke in terms of your proof of your belief system. Your proof was the emotionality that accompanies miracles that occur.
My question to you would be, and just out of curiosity, now I'm actually curious. When you got saved, were you saved? Were you always in church? Like I know families. Like for me, my biological father was a preacher, so I was exposed to that as a young child. There was a big gap there, but still, a lot of people I know were raised in it, and they don't know how to not believe in Jesus. And then the people who never knew Jesus, like drug addicts or whatever, there was a miracle that was attained to it, which actually triggers your emotions. And someone would just heartbreak. Some people coming off bad relationships, and they're suicidal, and they get saved. So my question for you would be, when you got saved, and this you don't even have to tell me if you don't want to, but my question for you is, when you got saved, was it purely an intellectual choice, like that makes sense, I should stop what I'm doing right now and start following Jesus? Or was it an experience that you had, something that really happened? Was it a miracle that you experienced? Was it emotional healing, physical healing? How was your interaction, and how old were you when it happened?
Okay, I'm glad, because I want to be totally honest. I grew up in a Lutheran church and was disillusioned, and when I went to college, I walked away, and I was skeptic like you. I had all, I'm not saying all the criticisms you have, but I had 100 doubts. Mm-hmm. So I dug deep, and I had to look, and it still took me a while.
But okay, so we're actually over an hour now. I don't want you to hang up though. Hang on, bear with me a second. But as my suspicion came, you were born into this thing, right? People who are not born into this, and for the very first time, this wasn't your first time when you left college and you fell away and you came back. You came back because that's what your parents taught you, right? And your natural magnetism was going to pull you back to what you originally knew, right? And maybe you did that, and you became a full-blooded believer, and next thing you know, 10, 20 years later, you find our channel, and now you're finding a problem. But you're already married to Jesus this whole time. You're not. It's hard to divorce Jesus when you've had such a long-term relationship with him. I get that. I know how that is. My wife went through that herself as well. A lot of my friends went through the same thing. I didn't so much because I was abused as a kid, and probably for me that helped me to disconnect easier. But the thing about it is it's still everything about Christianity, everything about the message of Christianity is all based on emotional connections, every bit of it, right? People who didn't come to Jesus through emotions were born into it. You might have a rare, weird occasions where another something happened, but 99.9% of the time, that's how it happens. And Judaism is a purely intellectual. There are emotional connections involved, but it's purely intellectual on how we walk and talk with our Creator in Judaism. That's the difference between Christianity. It's not emotional. So go ahead.
Yeah, I like Judaism, and I understand, but they have their roots passed on. I know what you're saying, but your people in
Clearly, you do not know what we're saying.
No, let me
keep making the statement that we have doubts. We do not have doubts. The reason we do not have doubts is because we believe what God said when God said every man should be put to death for his own sin. If every man is put to death for his own sin, Deuteronomy 24:16, Jesus cannot die for our sins. Yeah. If God in Exodus chapter 32 said, whoever sins against me, him will I blot out of my book, that means the person who commits the sin is the one who gets the punishment for the sin. Or Ezekiel 18, the wickedness of the wicked is on the wicked, not the wickedness of the wicked is on the righteous. We have no doubts. We know what God said. That's why we reject Christianity, because it's wrong.
Yeah, it's not.
When Christianity says that Jesus was God in the flesh, okay, well, my God says that God is God, humans are humans, God does not become a human, and humans don't become God. Numbers 23:19, God is not a man that he should lie, which means if God became a man, he'd be a liar. We do not have doubts. If God were a man, then like all other men, God too, like all other men, would also be a liar. And Hosea 11:9, for I am God and not a man. Ezekiel 28:2, where a person who believed he was God was severely punished for it. We have no doubts. We know exactly what God said. That's why we reject Christianity.
It falls back into the know that I am God, not believe. And that's why we don't have doubts, is because we don't have to guess, because we know. And we even know even more now because most of the people who subscribed to my channel were ex-Christians. Not just ex-Christians, but I'm talking about ex-preachers and teachers. I literally, they get this. That once you know, you know. But you can't know whenever you're still emotionally connected. That's the whole thing.
You have Jesus dying for you on a cross. Jesus, who did the dying, was Jesus the human, which means the basis of your religion is human sacrifice. We have no doubts because God told us human sacrifice is an abomination and something God hates.
So one thing I want you to take with you tonight, Judy, and I haven't hung up yet. I'm just kind of talking to you right now. One thing I really want you to take with you tonight is every single thing that you have mentioned on pretty much every phone call, every concept that you have about Christianity that you wish we believed in, every concept is wrong. That's why we interrupt so much, because everything you're saying, not even part of it is right. I mean, there are times when it was like you're talking about Israel, and yeah, I'm not talking about those parts. I'm talking about the salvation part of our relationship with the creator of the universe. Every single thing you think that you know is wrong. That's why we have so many answers for you. We don't have any doubts. We've already researched it. Most of us have walked where you walked, and we've left it because we see the errors in it. You're still married to Jesus, and I get it. Like I said, I know what it feels like to be emotionally connected to a person, or to even based on all my other friends and my wife, emotionally connected to Jesus. I get it. I understand how hard that is. So many people who actually leave Christianity eventually wind up turning atheists because they just throw the entire Bible away. They're so heartbroken over the whole thing, they ditch everything. And I get it. But whether I get it or not doesn't make Christianity right. Nothing can make Christianity right. That's the whole point. And you can't say, well, a lot of Christianity is good so I can keep Jesus. Nothing is right about Jesus at all. I mean, the only thing that's right about Jesus is that he's a guy. He was a Jew. And that's pretty much it. Because everything, there's no way he didn't fulfill a single prophecy, which means if there's 365 prophecies like I see floating around the internet, Jesus hasn't fulfilled a single one of them. Not one single prophecy has he fulfilled. He may fit the qualification of a couple, but he hasn't fulfilled any prophecies. So every single thing about Christianity is wrong. Rabbi?
Judy, you keep saying, or you keep thinking, or it sounds like you're thinking, that if you just could explain it right, we Jews would understand, and then we would come to Christianity. And that's not what's going on. What's going on is that we've been given a revelation by God to Moses to the Jews at Sinai, and we believe it, and that's why we reject Christianity as being unbiblical. Yeah. It's not that we don't understand. We understand it. We reject it because it's not what God said.
Right.
And there's nothing you can do to explain this in a way that's going to make it okay that a human being dies for someone else's sin.
This is a 2,000-year-old debate that has never been won, and it never will be won for a reason.
Because
Judy.
Christianity doesn't even understand Judaism. Oh, we understand Jews. We understand what they mean. No, you don't. Because if you did, you would at least understand it well enough to know that how we understand the Bible, what we read in the Bible, is what leads us to reject Christianity as unbiblical. Mm-hmm. There's no nice way to play it or better way to put it, or if I could just get you to understand, we understand. Yeah. We reject it. It's wrong. It's unbiblical.
Deuteronomy 13 says that this is a test to see who is going to keep Hashem's commandments. Not just the commandments, but all of them, the chukim. Rabbi, what are the three different types of commandments?
Chukim, mishpatim, and chok, mishpat, and.
Anyway, the point is, it's a test. It's a test to see who is going to give in to these new religions that come up. And it says whoever leads you that way deserves to die. So again, it's like. It's never been in the plan for Messiah to come to take the place and to atone for your sins. That's not what the Messiah does. The Messiah comes whenever you stop sinning. He doesn't come to fix you from your sin. And so, like I said, everything that you think, every single thing that you think, 99% of it is all wrong. And I appreciate your patience and your candor in the way you approach it with us, because you're never rude to us. You're very kind. We appreciate that. But it's still, every single thing you believe is wrong. I mean, everything is. And it's like, I didn't know that. I wouldn't know that if I hadn't been on the journey I was on. Like I said, going through the teaching phase myself, and teaching in a big church and all this other stuff, and having to go through this the hard way. I used to debate Rabbi, I didn't know if I told you this, but Rabbi Eli Cohen from Jews for Judaism, he posted one time about King David, and I went on Facebook when I was a Messianic, and I had this long debate with him. I just knew that I was going to be able to show him something new, and I left there scratching my head. And like the year or two later, here I am, So it's like, and I was good, man. I was a street preacher. I mean, I literally did open air preaching. I would go out on street corners and stand like these, pardon me, but these, no, I'm not going to say it. These people who were severely misled, going out in the corners, fire and brimstone. I went through that phase. I did all that. And it's like, I was very dedicated. I probably led more people to Jesus than most people you've ever met as a Christian, because that's all I ever did. I almost got to the point where I was very prideful about it. I almost had like put notches in my belt. Well, there's another one, and the people around me were like egging me on, like, damn, oh William, boy, he sure knows how to reel them in, and I did, because I knew all the right things to say. Everything I said is wrong. Now I've got to deal with all those people I led to a fake religion that's going to lead them in a path of very much regret, and it breaks my heart, Judy, some final words for you. I told you I wasn't going to hang up here. I didn't. Give us a few final words if you like, and I'm going to go ahead and wind down the show, okay?
Yes, very quickly. Thank you for letting me reply.
Sure.
First, if you play this back, you misunderstood. I didn't say that you doubt your religion. I never said that.
No, you said we doubt. You said we doubt your religion. We have doubts about your religion.
Right.
And we don't.
Yes, but we don't. We don't.
Sure, no, what I mean is you're sure that I'm wrong. So
yeah, we're sure. There's no doubts. It's an absolute fact.
I'm not disillusioned about that.
Okay, cool.
I'm not, but because I don't have much time, I'll say this two responses, but let me say both, please.
Okay, sure.
One is that there are many Messianic. My best friend is a Messianic Jew, and she's not stupid. Okay, there's many Messianic.
Oh, I don't believe any of them are stupid.
But she's still wrong.
I don't believe any of them are stupid.
Okay, she's wrong. All right. So that's one thing. The other thing is the Shroud of Turin. You've misquoted many things about it. I'm an expert. I wrote a book on it, and I'm telling you, the guy, the Jewish guy, he's not even Christian. He knows all the facts up to date. He's got the website on the Shroud. He says it's Jesus Christ, but he still is Jewish.
Okay, so I have a question for you.
Yeah, like a Messianic.
I did just cut you off. I turned you down because I have a question for you. It's a thought, but it couples with a question. So the Shroud of Turin, the only thing it shows on the Shroud is that there was possibly a man's figure there, because it was like a bearded figure, whatever the case may be, right? It does not prove that anybody who was on that shroud resurrected. It doesn't prove anything. It's impossible to prove a resurrection. It can only prove that there was bloodstains from some male figure laying. That's all it can prove. It doesn't. Even if it proved it was Jesus, it still doesn't prove that he died. It just doesn't. No matter what you say, there's no evidence that could actually prove that. So my question is, why do you believe that it proves he resurrected?
Okay, I'm here. Okay, I didn't know if I was muted. Why do I believe it?
No. Why do
I believe that it proves he was resurrected?
Yes.
First of all, the reason why it's likely Jesus, if you take it to a court of law, there's a crown of thorns that have actual blood around the head, and a spear, they call it the spear of destiny, in his lower right rib.
I'm not doubting. No, listen, Judy, I'm not doubting that it might be him. I'm saying, what is the proof that's proof of a resurrection?
Okay, and first of all, more than likely, I'm just inserting this. He was brutally beaten before.
Okay, so I want to object. This is a very serious objection. First, you said it's proof, but twice in just a couple sentences, you said more than likely and most likely. Well, if it's proof, then it's absolutely. There's no likely or most likely. So it's either absolute or it's not. Okay, so again, my question is, forget the stab wound. Let's say it was Jesus. I don't care whether it was Jesus now. How does that shroud prove that he resurrected? That's the question.
Okay. In a nutshell, maybe proof is a strong word, but evidence of a resurrection, because it is photonegative, it is three-dimensional, there's blood under the image. The image has been there for 2,000 years. Carbon testing has been...
How does that prove a resurrection? That just proves that there was a person laying there that was bleeding. That's all it proves. How does it prove a resurrection? That's the question.
It's evidence of a resurrection.
No, it's
resurrection?
I apologize. She was fixing to tell us. Go ahead. Tell us how it's evident of a resurrection. How?
There's 10 reasons, but let me give you the 2 or 3 most. Okay? First of all, you got to hear one thing as background. The carbon testing has been refuted strongly, and vanillin testing by NASA physicists have aged it back to the time of Christ.
Okay, that's not answering the question. For example, let's say that I murdered somebody, God forbid, and I had a blanket, and then next year they find the blanket. Now forget that. Let's just say I mugged somebody, and maybe I thought they were dead, right? And I put them in a blanket, and I hauled them to the emergency room, whatever. And somebody found that blanket a year later, carbon dated it, did all these fancy tests that you're talking about on that blood. They won't be able to tell if that person's alive or dead by what's on the cloth. It's absolutely impossible. All they can tell is maybe who the blood belonged to, if they had enough records dating far enough back, which is why I also doubt that they can prove it's Jesus, because they're going on ideas. He was stabbed in the rib and there was a rib wound. Yeah, whatever. I don't buy all that. Even if I did, it's okay. But how does that prove? And you're still not answering the question. You're kind of beating around the bush. I don't want maybes. You said absolute proof. If it's proof, then you could just tell me one statement, and I'll be like, oh, my God, there it is. So forget all the explanations of the special scientific terms, the $50 words, and all this other stuff. How does the Shroud of Turin prove a resurrection? And so far, you haven't said anything that even leads to it, except for fancy words that scientists say.
Okay, here it is. You want to know the biggest evidence? You want to know the biggest evidence?
That was the question from the beginning.
Okay. The blood that they have found is underneath the image. And the image can be scraped off. The image of Christ can be scraped off with a razor blade. So he bled first. He suffered first. The blood is underneath the image, and the image lies on top of the blood. Okay, that's the biggest. You call it maybe proof. I call it maybe evidence. How
is that even evidence? But how is that even evidence of a resurrection? All that's going to show is somebody was laying there who was bleeding. That's all that proves. It does not prove a resurrection. I don't know who told you this, but there's no way that could prove a resurrection. It can only prove that there was a man laying there. It only meant because they had a facial negative of whatever. I am kind of curious, by the way, how his hair impression got on the front of it when hair falls, whatever. The thing was laid over his face. That was kind of weird. But again, it doesn't prove anything. In fact, it doesn't. It's not even connected to a resurrection or imminent death. All it shows is that somebody was laying there who was bloody. That's all it proves.
Can I make a request though, please?
Go ahead.
I am reading from radiocarbon dating of the Shroud of Turin, Wikipedia. The Shroud of Turin, a linen cloth that tradition associates with the crucifixion and burial of Jesus, has undergone numerous scientific tests, the most notable of which is radiocarbon dating in an attempt to determine the relic's authenticity. In 1988, scientists at 3 separate laboratories dated samples from the Shroud of Turin to between 1260 and 1390 CE, coinciding with the first certain appearance of the shroud in the 1350s and a much later date than the burial of Jesus in 30 to 33 CE.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about when you say that the Shroud of Turin was carbon dating to 2,000 years ago. It's just simply not true.
I think what's happening too is that just like you can't find any evidence of Jesus in anything except for the New Testament. There's Josephus writings that they say those weren't his original writing. That looks like that they actually kind of did a little not plagiarism, but they actually inserted writings into the complete works of Josephus because it's not his writing style. But just like that, the whole Shroud of Turin thing in the Christian academic world, they're using this as their own proof, but it's only proof for them because they're trying to prove that it was him when there's no proof. You know what I mean? And so that's why we have such a big problem with it.
By the way, you also may want to take a look.
Judy, I haven't hung up, by the way, just so you know. Judy?
Okay. Take a look at Nature magazine.
Actually, she hung up on us. That was the first. So maybe something finally clicked.
1989 Nature magazine. Yeah. Okay, a well-attended press conference on October 13, Cardinal Balestrero announced the official results that radiocarbon testing dated the shroud to between 1260 and 1390 with 95% confidence. The official and complete report on the experiment was published in the magazine Nature.
Okay, well, that's kind of a good read. We got a couple callers on, but it's getting late. And so just so you all know, in fact, here at this channel where I have all the different rabbis and teachers, and a lot of people do, they go straight to the rabbis and support them, but I also do, unfortunately, but I will need your help also. So if you really appreciate this channel, I really ask you to consider donating to this channel on a regular basis if you can. TaNaCh.com, there's a link there. There's also a Patreon link I'll probably have at the end of the video on an ad. Just so you know, we'll have 10 years, November, the month of November, I don't know the exact date, but November will mark 10 years TaNaCh Talk has actually been on the air. Very excited about that. If you guys have the means and you really appreciate this channel at all, please consider supporting it. I'll put the thing on the screen for you now. I'm plugging it now because I went and did an analysis over the past 6 months or whatever, and I think after the war came, God forbid that continues, hopefully that'll end soon, and the Jewish people will be saved for sure. But once that came in, donation has dropped a lot on my side to help them, which I really respect, and I think that's really sweet. And I don't think of course I never talk about it. I only put the ad up there. But your support is definitely needed for sure. I mean, I actually do have gigs that I do in the evening to help pay the bills, and sometimes it requires more than less. But if you guys have some to spare, please send it in. I can certainly use it to help us out with this channel a lot. And also with Rabbi Stuart Federow, you may or may not know, most of you do know, he's got a new video out on HebrewJumpstart.com. That's the website, HebrewJumpstart.com. One of the best Hebrew teaching lessons out there from what the comments section says. And since Rabbi is actually retired without the benefits of retirement, this is one of the things that hopefully will help him soften his daily landing, because there's a workbook that you guys can download for like $10 or whatever it is to actually work along with this to expedite your learning experience through the Hebrew language, and this is really, really good. So HebrewJumpstart.com, you want to go there and catch that. And also, most of you already have this book, and I took the image down. Rabbi, where's your book at? Judy, just have me hold up one of them. This is one of the most dynamic, small, easy reads that you can buy. It's got all the sources you need to answer so many questions. It quotes a lot of Rabbi Singer's work. Of course, he is like the granddaddy of us all.
Here's the one in Spanish.
Yep. And then in Portuguese.
Here's the one in Portuguese.
Do you have one in Redneck?
No.
I'll have to edit that one for you.
That's another translation.
Yeah, okay. But we really appreciate you guys too. Thank you so much for my moderators out there. You guys rock. They're staying on top of things, and it makes it easier for me to do my show with Rabbi and not have to babysit the channel too much. I do like looking at the channel comments though. There's a lot of good stuff going on there. A lot of great questions I can't get to. But yeah. So, Rabbi, love you much. You're awesome. You did a great job as usual. And, I know what I was going to say. So, earlier on, the question about Zechariah, it was kind of like it took a little bit of time. We didn't really get anywhere with it. And since we've got an hour and 20 minutes on this video, I'm going to probably take those questions out that didn't seem to go anywhere. I'm going to delete those and keep these New Testament questions in, splice it together, probably make one nice little hour package video out of this one. And what I'm telling you right now also will be edited out. So you won't see this if you go back and watch the video. Okay, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, turn on all notifications. That way when I put comments up there or post or share videos, you will catch everything. You guys should have a great week. Rabbi, love you much. And y'all have a great week. Take care. Peace, everybody.
Hello, my dear friends. Hope this message finds you well. If you like the way this channel is going and the channel has been a blessing to you, please consider supporting the channel by going to the website, TaNaChTalk.com, TaNaChTalk.com. TaNaCh.com. Thank you once again for your time and for supporting TaNaCh Talk. Shalom.
חשוב מכל חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד. איפוק זו העוצמה, ויתור זו הגדולה, השאיפה